So we have a couple shows that we do, right? So we have a shelter and party. Basically, it's a Zoom party where I get a bunch of DJs. We spin for a couple hours, kind of create that interactive feel that people are lacking. Then we also do another show. It's called Jam Sessions, DJ Jam Sessions, where it's basically like a DJ showcase where we have DJs put on nice, clean, tight 30-minute sets. We have a host who basically introduces each DJ and does, a little Q&A with each DJ, and we're actually having one on Sunday. So we'll talk about that a little later. What's up, DJ Maggie? How you doing?
Hey, Maggie.
And so after doing jam sessions, there were so many cool DJs that had a lot of great stories that I felt like we wanted to talk more about their stories. And so I felt like SIPnJAM was like the perfect way to do that, the mix between all of it. But so let's talk about today. Let's talk about DJ Newton's story. So how I want to do this is I feel like where everyone grew up obviously molds who they are, right? So give me the setting. Where did you grow up? What neighborhood? You can tell me about it.
Okay, we are talking about the early 80s in Hercules, California. It's an East Bay city. And back then, it was the city that everyone was moving to. A lot of people moving from Daly City, a lot of folks moving from like Fairfield. And it was one of those places where there's absolutely nothing to do. Back then, we didn't have any parks. There's no stores. There's no entertainment whatsoever. So everyone was bored. Everyone that moved there moved from cities that had all this vibrant atmosphere, parks, activities. And we moved there, it was just nothing but homes. There was absolutely nothing. And people were crying. I remember that.
Wow.
And one of the stupid things I remember people doing because they were so bored is they'd walk through storm drains from like our city to the next city. I'm like, wow, what the hell? Yeah, there's like caverns. It's kind of cool. Let's do it. That's one of the stupid things they would do. But then in the early 80s, there was also DJing. So for us, when we first caught hold of this scene, it was basically from an initial group in San Francisco, the legendary Ultimate Creations. And they happened to be cousins of our friends that lived down the street from us. So there was one garage party where they came over and they did their thing on the turntables and lighting in the garage, and they're mixing and a little bit of scratching. We're like, man, that is so cool. We've never seen anything like that. So we're like, hey, man, we got to talk to these guys and pick their brains. And, they essentially were engaging us and say, hey, you should get into this too. We have all this lighting, these spinners and stuff for parties that you might want. Maybe you should buy it. And so we were talking initially with lighting equipment and such, and it kind of progressed into the actual DJing and mixers and turntables. And we were talking to Jeannie G, one of the, I would say, pioneers of DJing in the city, San Francisco. So we're talking about maybe 83 now. So that was kind of like the beginning.
How old were you, by the way, at that time?
Probably like 14, 15.
Okay.
Yeah. So our group, Dynamic Sounds, we were kind of inspired by this Ultimate Creations. And so talk started occurring like, hey, we need to get equipment. We got to do this. This looks like it's very interesting. And so we were talking to our parents, our dad, and he goes, you know what? If we're going to do this and you have maybe like 3 or other friends that are involved, let's go ahead and ask their parents if they're interested in pitching in for equipment. We could make this like a joint effort amongst all the parents. And so we kind of had a big powwow with all the parents. And interestingly enough, none of them were interested in pitching in money.
Of course.
No. That's kind of weird. That's a lot of wasted money. we can't do that. How much are those turntables? How much are those speakers? oh, that's a lot of money. No, no. And so I remember we're all kind of bummed out. We're like, man, maybe this won't happen. And we were talking to our dad. He goes, well, you know what? If they're not going to do it, I want you guys to have an activity to keep you busy, keep you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just, flip the bill for you, but you guys pay me back. So that was the beginning.
Like
My
a true
dad,
businessman, your
yeah,
dad.
he bought all the equipment, the turntables, the speakers, and we're talking about thousands of dollars in the early
Ooh,
80s. That's a lot
damn.
of money.
Yeah.
So my dad said, well, if I'm buying the equipment, you guys head the whole thing. You guys spearhead it, you manage it, you do what you need to do. So he bought us the equipment. We started buying records and just started practicing in our garage, practicing religiously. I mean, it was really just basically an activity where you just could not get away from. It was, man, it was like a drug. You just kept on practicing every day, whether it was mixing or scratching. It was, you did it during your spare time. We had a lot of spare time as kids, and it's after school or after we did our homework, we'd always be in the garage practicing, mixing, like, oh, check this out, And it started out with us, and it kind of spread with our other friends that were across the city from us, which is like Mike Cool or 3D Sounds with DJ Sunny Abad. And we all were just hooked, constantly practicing, constantly comparing notes. So we're all good buds. And, we all started elevating together. There's like 3 groups in Hercules. It was us, Dynamic Sounds. It was Mike Cool with Sounds of Steel. And then we had Sunny Abad, 3D Sounds. So, we would all do our thing. And at times we'd kind of be secretive. Like, we come up with like a new trick or a new gimmick, and we would not say anything to one another, and then we just kind of bust it out at parties and just surprise one another. And the funny thing about those days is, although as DJs we're all cool and friends with one another, it was really like all the roadies back then that would talk and whisper like, who's better, who's this, who's that, who's the best out of these guys. And they would try to create all this friction.
Yeah.
But we were like, yeah, that doesn't matter. We're all good. We're all cool with one another. In the end, we would, just compare notes and be friendly. But yeah, that was the beginning. I mean,
So
essentially getting that equipment was key because it was so expensive. That's what kept a lot of people out of the game. Was the cost of equipment.
So backtracking, because I know you mentioned seeing unique creations, right? I mean,
Creations.
Sorry, Ultimate Creations.
Uh-huh.
Was there? I know during that time too, like there was a lot of hip hop kind of being seen on the TV. Was it starting to come in the mainstream a little bit, like with Beat Street, or not? Was that predating that?
No, that was predating that. When we got in, it was more like disco, high energy disco. I guess for the NorCal folks, they were more familiar with like up-tempo cha-cha tunes, really disco during that time. And maybe a year or two later, or maybe a year later, we started seeing all the early hip-hop, Run DMCs and UTFOs and stuff like that coming out, Fat Boys. So, we basically started out with disco, then progressed into like the early hip-hop scene.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I know you're saying you guys were practicing new tricks. So obviously you guys didn't have any reference to come up with these tricks. So you kind of were just messing around, right? Like you.
Yeah. That was the funny thing about that time. There's no YouTube. It was all word of mouth. So you would hear about things, but you never saw it. So it's almost like hearing about like mystical stories or folklore. You weren't quite sure whether it really existed or not until you actually saw it, because like the fusion of information or even techniques was slow. It would maybe start out back east and slowly make its way out west. So you'd hear about these things, but you're like, is it true? Is it true? I guess we just have to wait and see. Maybe we'll see someone bust out with it at a party or a dance. We don't know if it's true. I mean, the same went with like the dancing, because back then you had like roboting and shredding, and you would hear about certain things. You're like, is that true? Is that true? But you would only see it when you hit a party or a garage party or a dance or a big function, and then when it busts out and you'd hear about things and you'd see it, you're like, oh man, that is so exciting. And people like take real good notes as they see it and like incorporate it into their own skill set or their own routines. So I guess one of the things we used to hear back in the day, if we're fast forwarding maybe 3 years, was transforming. We had a friend that was a mixtape head. His name is Ed Perez. And he would say, yeah, from back east, there's this new scratch. It's called transforming. We're like, what the hell is that? He goes, well, it's basically people scratching and they're mimicking the sound of a transformer transforming, a robot changing shape. You're like, how do they do that? Is that for real? And then, the first guys that we ever heard was Jazzy Jeff to put it on wax, where he was transforming. Like, oh man, that's crazy. But you didn't see any video. You only had tape. So what we would do is we'd take a tape player, slow it down, and say, hey, what exactly is he doing? And, we were so bored back in the day that we would take this tape and like he would have like the sound fresh playing. And when he's transforming it, I was like, what the hell is he doing? We slow it down. And it's like, okay, it sounds like he's reversing it and cutting in and out and forwarding and cutting in and out. And we would literally dissect a tape of the sound and try to recreate it on our own. And we're like, hey man, I got it. Here's what he's doing. And
Wow.
I think a lot of people back in the day were doing the same thing in the East Bay, the South Bay, the North Bay, San Francisco. We were all like, trying to get ahead of one another and try to be on top of the game and learn all these techniques. So yeah, without the internet or YouTube or anything, everyone would get mixtapes or videotapes from friends that had all this stuff like the DMCs, all the hot DJs, and you would just like basically try to mimic what we were seeing or just breaking down what we heard on audio tape and try to mimic it. Yeah, so it was a different thing back then. I mean, it took a lot of imagination to figure out what these guys are doing.
Interesting. So then, so you guys were practicing these in your garage, and so what happened from there?
Oh wow!
Like, how did you go to start? Like, I know there was a showcase scene, or did you start just doing, birthdays or house parties or?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of garage parties, a lot of birthday parties, debutantes, debuts, as in the Filipino community would say, or even weddings. And,
so do you remember your first gig and how you guys got that? Because obviously they're like, oh, we're garage DJs, but hire us.
Someone mentioned that, and for the likes of me, I could not remember what our first gig was. It might have been a hall gig, because back then, even now, you had to rely on your local social circle who was having a party or a dance and they needed someone. And if they didn't know anyone and they knew that you did it, they would hire you automatically. So I think the first one that we ever did was at a Buddhist temple. It was called the Buddha gig. And the funny thing was we weren't cutting or anything or scratching at these events yet. We were just kind of keeping it straight mixing. And we would reserve all the cutting and scratching either for the showcases or the battles. And occasionally we would get people after our parties that would come up and challenge us on our equipment. So
challenge you?
Oh yeah. They're like, hey man, I didn't see you guys do this or that. I can. I want to see what you could do. And they're like, well, fine. I want to see what you could do. So, occasionally after parties, they would cut on our equipment and we would cut and, basically compare notes. And it was, borderline, kind of fight like, but kind of friendly banter. But, in the end, it always turned positive because we just kind of compare notes like, hey, yeah, that was pretty cool. So, while Bob, my brother, he was the main DJ back then, he was like the main spinner, the mixer. He would practice on his craft of mixing and spinning out through the whole night, while I would practice like the bag of tricks, the scratching or the juggling or scratching with your elbow or behind the back.
Yeah.
So when these guys would come up and challenge, I'm like, okay, bring on your stuff. Let's see what you got. And then so they do their stuff and we do our stuff. And they're like, damn, we didn't know you could do that. How come you don't do it during the dance? We're like, well, we wish we could, but it's not appropriate. So there used to be a time we're doing all the tricks and such. We knew to refrain not to do it during certain venues, weddings, regular dances. We'd have to kind of shove it aside until afterwards. So back in the day, in the early 80s, or maybe even the mid 80s, a lot of people would, do their normal mixing. But when the party was over, man, they would just hop on there and just start messing around. This is when people are gone and do all their tricks and stuff, Yeah. So we didn't really utilize all that until the battles and the showcases. So
cool. And so how did I know they mentioned in the book Temple of Boom. So how did the showcase scene kind of start popping around, and what year did that start popping around, and when did you start going to those? And
the earliest I recall, it might have been 84, or maybe even 83. It was a promoter from San Francisco named Mark Bradford. I think he realized the value of what was going on in the scene with the Filipino community. He saw that there were a lot of dancers, a lot of break dancers back then, a lot of DJs, because that was the go-to activity that everyone was into. And he said,
I think we actually have that flyer, right? 84 right here, this one? Or is it a different one?
Wait, hold on. If it shows...
It says Unique Musique, Eternal Sound Productions, Futuristic Sounds, 1984.
Because I remember the very first group that won was a group that I would do work with. It was Zero Gravity.
Okay.
Is Zero Gravity in there?
No, they're not.
So I bet it might have been 1983 then.
Okay.
Because in 83, he had his first Imagine where he had the Break Off, which featured the crew that I was affiliated with, Zero Gravity, and they're the very first ones that won that battle. And then they had the DJs battle. So it might have been 83 for all.
Okay.
Yeah, based off of this flyer, or maybe earlier in that year. Hard to say, but yeah, I think 83. This is March.
Okay.
Yeah, so this Mark Bradford, he was a real estate guy back in the day. And I remember him saying back then, we have all this talent, all these talented crews, and, this whole DJ scene's really big, but I want to take it and for the Filipino community, make it a big production and let's celebrate it. So he started throwing all these Imagines. And back in the day, if you're invited to one of these or even listed on the flyer, it was a great honor to be there and be part of this thing. So for every winner of these battles, I mean, it brought so much notoriety, so much fame for those groups because it gave them bragging rights. Like, yeah, we're the best in the Bay. It's us, blah, blah, blah. And, it was it carried through where you would get a lot of gigs and people would recognize you wherever you went. And truly back then, the whole DJ scene was really about pride. It wasn't really about making money. So people would dump all their money into equipment, into the records, and just practice a lot. It was truly pride because, back then, no one was really thinking about the money. They're just thinking about the instant fame.
Yeah. And you didn't partake in any of these Imagine showcases, correct?
We did, in a sense, where we were judges and
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we would go in there and judge, and
so obviously you're good enough then that they're like, hey, you would be a judge.
Yeah, he was trying to recruit us, but I don't know, we weren't that interested, because there's a saying, because we were already established. We were doing a lot of the major parochial schools, high schools in the East Bay. We were doing a lot of the colleges. So we were established. I mean, we didn't really feel the need to go out and prove ourselves, because we were already doing a lot of the main functions and venues in our part of the Bay.
Yeah.
So when we were looking at this, we're like, I could see for like a newcomer the need to do this, because it would get their names out and get them to a position where we were already at.
Yeah.
So for us, we're like, it's interesting, but I don't think it would serve us properly. So for the new and up and comers, it was great for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had many meetings with Mark Bradford. He would come over to our house and try to convince us to join the battle. We're like, nah, we're not that interested. So he would throw our names on the flyer and just invite us over to judge.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Looking back, maybe we should have.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But so obviously judging those showcases, I'm sure you saw a lot of great talent come out of there. And were you impressed when you saw? That talent?
There are a lot of really good DJs out there. Gosh, I remember Imperial Sounds. Man, one in particular that really caught our attention, because back then they judged you on skill and your setup. If you had a lot of lighting, a lot of speakers. There's one group from Hayward. It was DMST. He didn't have much in terms of equipment, but it was back in '85. This is the first guy. His name was Sean Tako. He was repeating like verses on records, and he was on top of a ledge, but above him you could see a reflection of him on a glass ceiling, and you could see his hands flatten back and forth, and we had never seen that before live. And like, oh shit, this dude's hella bad. And I was like, my God. I mean, for him to do what he was doing, and he was cutting like verses from other songs into another song, and just making sense. And he was clean, and he was exciting. But unfortunately, he didn't win that battle because of you're talking about overall equipment and sound and crowd reaction. But he had crowd reaction. He didn't have the equipment. But lo and behold, after that party, everyone knew who he was. Yeah. They all gave him props because he was also a singer. He was singing some song. I think it was "Ready for the World." Yeah, I forget what song it was. "Let Me Love You Down." I just remember after that, all the girls and I guess every high school remembered that. I'm like, yeah, Sean Tako or Shawnee Fresh, that was his name. That guy is awesome.
Wow. Is he still spinning today? Do you know?
I did look him up because, is with all these old school DJs, I always wondered whatever happened to him. And I did look him up. I think he went to Hawaii for a bit, was spinning out there on radio. And then I think from what I last saw, he was probably like the San Diego area doing like wedding DJ work.
What's up, Original Video Rat? Oh, he made a little comment right here. He said, I remember Newton and his bro building DIY Sonic bass cabinets in their garage.
Yeah, back in the day, I guess because everyone wanted to save money, or maybe because we didn't really see like equipment that we wanted. So people would like build their own speakers or build their own lighting. And I mean, it sounds hokey now, but the way it was used, I mean, it was rather functional. And yeah, we did build our own speakers back in the day. We would like look at measurements of our current speakers and cut out wood and like cut out patterns and glue them together and nail them or screw them together and even put like carpeting on it, and we put the drivers and it sounded just as good. But yeah,
Wow.
back in the day, all the Filipino DJs were building everything, man.
So how did you guys figure that out? Did you just take apart a speaker and just
Yeah.
yeah.
We'd open it up and look like, instead of buying this stuff, we could make it for like half
Wow.
the price.
Yeah.
And, it's funny that we would think that way, but when you're younger and you have all this time, especially during summer, you're like, why not? Let's do this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, a lot of people back then were really good do-it-yourselfers because we'd see a lot of DJ crews with their homemade lighting, basically like border lights, and they would chase, and that kind of would lead back to like light controllers, or where people would like make these boxes to plug in their lighting where they could press buttons and trigger the lighting the way they wanted.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
Very cool. Sorry. Yeah. So obviously, is that now why you're so handy in your house?
That was our generation where you had uncles and dads that were engineers, and they would just do everything on their own. And really, the feeling back then was like, why waste money having someone else do it when you could do it yourself? But as we get older, we realize like, I don't know about that. Maybe our time is more valuable than actually doing those things. Where if you pay someone else to do it, we actually save money.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's a fine balance.
I think going back to what you said, I think it's, obviously not having the money and trying to be inventive. Nowadays, obviously, when you have that disposable income, you're like, okay, let me save that time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you get paid high per hour.
Yeah.
Your time could be way more valuable than doing it yourself.
Yeah. Very cool.
Oh.
And so let's go on to, I know you guys actually put on your own show, right?
Yeah. It was Destiny Productions.
Okay.
So I guess to really put it in perspective, there is a point in time where we kind of grew tired of the Imagine scene, because what we started seeing was, I don't know, maybe corruption, a little bit of corruption,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of abuse of the kids by the promoter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like very cutthroat in the sense where if you threw a battle or a showcase on your own, and if you didn't have his blessing, he would do anything in his power to bring it down or to reduce the I guess the attendee,
Mm-hmm.
the attendance numbers of your function. And like, we're kind of like, we're kind of through with that. We're getting older, and who is it for, say, this guy who's been in the game for a bit to try to dictate everything?
Mm-hmm.
So we broke off from that Imagine, and we started Destiny Productions, and we managed to grab a bunch of other DJs who were kind of fed up with the Imagine scene and the politics,
Mm-hmm.
and pulled them over. And so we would throw our own functions. So this one here that's on the screen, this was Destiny in 1987, where we hired Tila Rock from Def Jam Recording. He was like the very first rapper
Mm-hmm.
from that label. And then we also hired Mantronic and his DJ Louie Lou and his MC. I forget what his MC's name was. So this was in Richmond Auditorium, 1987.
Got the flyer right here.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the interesting things about this is when we were booking the acts for the show. This is 1987, and kind of like mid-year, we were talking to some of the booking agents, and we were telling them who we wanted, and he goes, you know what? Jazzy Jeff just won the new music seminar in '86. He goes, you might want to consider bringing them out, him and the Fresh Prince. We're like, I know, he's awesome. But I don't think the people out here know about him yet. We know who he is because of the DJ battles and the new music seminar. I don't think our crowd is ready for them yet. But for the hell of it, if we did bring them out, how much would they cost? He goes, okay, for the Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, $3,500. I'm like, yeah, man, that sounds enticing, but I think we'll pass.
Yeah.
So, years later, when you see these guys blow up, you're like, shit, we should have hired those dudes.
Yeah.
Those guys, in today's world, they'd be worth hell of money to hire.
Yeah. So I remember when we were talking about that, we looked up the date. And I think so right here, you see the date when it happened. It was 1987. And I believe 1988 was when Parents Just Don't Understand came out.
Yeah, so it was way before their time.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things I remember back then was in '86 when Jazzy Jeff won the new music seminar. Not only was he like the first guy transforming in the battle arena, but back then it was a DJ that led the charge that gave like the MC DJ duos the credibility, like, so it was cool that Jazzy Jeff was able to pull up the Fresh Prince back then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess when roles reversed, when the Fresh Prince became a big actor, big Hollywood guy, I'm sure he was helping his DJ too.
Yeah.
Getting gigs in Hollywood and playing at places like Warner Brothers and such. But it's kind of neat to see that dynamic. And then in the end, it's like the DJ being like the forefront kind of brought things full circle, in today's world where, the DJ is renowned again or celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that with like the new generation, like, you have younger kids are now able to make a living off of DJing alone, which is cool.
Yeah. Cool. Wow, it's so crazy about that story. When you mentioned that story, I was like, wow. But yeah, you just you never know, where. I'm sure there's like tons of times where that happens where like, oh, you just feel like you don't know what some person's trajectory is going to be, right? And, so like, for instance, like you can kind of mention, so actually it's a perfect time because 1987 and what I think you said 1988, 1989, you saw some DJ who blew the Bay Area away with some crazy mixing.
Yeah, so let me tell you, Q-Bert, the very first time I heard about him, there was talk going around like, hey, there's this DJ that's like ultra crazy, really hyped. I was like, really? I was like, I think I remember that guy. I saw him, I think in '87 at a battle at a local junior college in what was that? Diablo Valley College. I mean, I would see him like do It's Time, scratching back and forth. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. It's kind of Joe Cooley like. So '87, that was in '87. I was like, okay, yeah, I remember that guy. Has he progressed? And people are saying, oh yeah, he's progressed. I'm like, really? I didn't see him after that. Then I saw him at this battle here. This is the 1989 Expressions battle. So to put everything in perspective, back in those times, my brother and I were like really on top of what was happening nationally and internationally in terms of DJ skills. So we're like, okay, we know what's going on out there. And I remember I was part of this battle. And as we were driving to it, I was like, I feel kind of confident, because, I'm up to par with what's going on internationally and nationally. And in the back of my head, I was like, I wonder if there's anything that surpasses that. So we get to this battle and, I missed a sound check. So obviously Q-Bert did a sound check and my friend was there. He was like, definitely like, man, I was his mentor, so I would show him a bunch of things. So he knew what was up. And I missed this sound check for Q-Bert, and I get there, and he goes, his name was Alex Manuel, a good friend from Fairfield. He said, "Oh shit, Newton. Oh fuck." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Q-Bert, he's fucking fast." I'm like, "Come on, really?" "Oh man, dude, I've never seen anything like it. Never ever." I'm like, "Really?" So like, can it be? So that night we saw like a bunch of other DJs that were quick mixing. You're like, "Oh, that's cool, that's cool." And then Q-Bert comes on. And I would say, because a lot of us thought we were like up and up on the game for like a good 20 minutes from his first song to his last song. You would just see his hands like this constantly. And then he was scratching hella fast. And then he was also moving his mouth to like the lyrics of the music. And like, what the fuck are we seeing here? It's like, this dude's like an animatronic. Like he's even mimicking his vocal or his mouth to like, what he's scratching. Like one of the things was, Public Enemy. What was that? Bring the Noise. Yeah, 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 yeah. And he'd spin it back, and he'd like mouth ha ha, and he was doing that throughout all the DJs in the room that's battling. And I was like, oh shit, this dude's hella bad. And his showmanship was just incredible. And I was thinking like, man, I had never seen anything like this even on the videotapes. And I was like, I wonder, there's a part of me thinking, most people emulate other people. Who is he emulating? Because I've never seen anyone out there doing this. And, apparently they weren't emulating anyone. They just came up with their own style. So out in the city, especially in that Daly City area, it was like this pot, just boiling of creativity, and apparently all the guys out there were just comparing notes and just raising the game. So I did notice that in the Bay Area turntable scene, that as people were getting better and they're doing quick mixing, some people were getting bored with just the mixing. They wanted like the flash and flare. So we were on the fringe of that too. So what we were finding back then were people were like playing with tones, making sounds with their turntables. They're like getting crazier. They're scratching. It was becoming more predominant. It all basically culminated in Q-Bert in '89, where he busted out big time. And it was just one of those jaw-dropping moments where you're like, shit, this is what it's all come down to. It was one of those few moments when someone's talent level hits you like a ton of bricks over the head. And that was like the breaking point for a lot of DJs. Some of them said, fuck it, I'm gonna become a racer, I'm quitting. But yeah, you had like younger people that he also aspired to. Like, you had a lot of the Filipino DJs in the early 90s that followed his lead and started battling in the DMCs, the ITFs, which was great. I mean, but yeah, it was a defining moment. You had this guy that just busted out big time, was doing stuff that no one ever saw. And I remember after that battle, he didn't win because he was so ahead of his time. But looking back at that routine, he could have taken that routine, went to the DMCs that year, and would just flat out won it all. Maybe even '88, because what was being done at the time was nowhere near this level by far.
Yeah. Wow. So referring to the video too, I noticed this and I pointed this out to you one time. So if ever notices, the mixer is at the very far left and you have the two tables next to each other. And eventually, obviously, the mixer I don't know what year, but it eventually went in the middle. So what was the reasoning for that, or how did that start? Or
Oh yeah, that was like a big thing amongst like the early DJs, because you would want to take your mixer and put on one side and scratch with your dominant hand.
Mhm.
You know, so Q-Bert had on the left, his dominant hand was the right.
Mhm.
We had ours on the right, our mixer and the turntables on the left, because our dominant hand was on the left.
Mhm.
So, you know, when you're cutting back and forth, it's just even.
Yeah.
And we didn't know until later when we were doing like a Black Family Week, you know, stepping contest dance for UC Davis. We had one black DJ came up and he saw our setup. It was set up like that. Mixer on the right, two turntables on the left. And he goes, "Oh man, you guys are handicapped." Like, what do you mean handicapped? He goes, "You guys have all on one side. Your mixer should be in the middle." And we're like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah. You know, you go out nationally, they're gonna frown upon that." But it's funny, and I remember making mention of that. I was like, I think Q-Bert should go standard mixer in the middle. And I think word did get around back then when we were like smaller social circle. Because next thing you know, I see him with the mixer in the middle and he was able to cut.
Yeah.
But if you look at one of his first battles internationally, he starts out in the middle and then he does a transition move where he picks up his mixer and moves his turntable, and they have it both on the right side so he could feel more comfortable like doing his it takes two juggle.
Mhm.
I mean, he was badass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, back then he had to go with what was familiar with him.
Mhm.
So, but he did really well. I mean, I remember getting beaten in this battle and I was like, man, this sucks. This feels terrible. But I remember thinking, like, when he won all the battles, I'm like, man, I don't feel so bad.
Yeah.
He's a world-class DJ,
Yeah.
world-class talent.
Yeah.
I was like, now I could brag about being beaten.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. He was right here, and you're just right there.
Yeah. But, I do remember, this is a goofy thing. We weren't really interviewed for the Legions of Boom book, but we were definitely in the forefront of what was happening,
Mhm.
especially during this time. When they announced the winner, my friend and I were partaking in this battle. We're right beside Jazzy Jim, who won the battle. He's a, great DJ with mixing skills, and right next to Q-Bert. And I remember when they announced that Q-Bert didn't win, Q-Bert's face was like, and I and the guy that won, who was just a straight mixer, he turns to him and goes, "Man, dude, you really won. You're the true winner in this all." And that kind of stuck in our head. Because later, when it came for Q-Bert to go internationally or nationally, he represented well.
Yeah.
And all the accolades from him, because for what he did for the record industry and turntable industry, he
Mhm.
kind of brought it back where the vinyl and turntables were still significant, because back in that day, I think when we were hitting 90, 91, they actually tried to kill the vinyl industry. I remember going to these record stores and they're pushing CDs, and then all the vinyl, they'd move it elsewhere in the store and say the vinyl resting place. So for these guys to bring back this interest on an international level, across all different demographics of people and financial backgrounds, they deserve all the money that came to them. You know, they represented well, and they brought interest to the whole turntable vinyl scene.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
Let's backtrack real quick, because you kind of mentioned, oh, I was at a battle. When did you start partaking in some battles? I believe you said you did some of them, right?
Yeah. For the longest we avoided, and it was only toward the end. I felt like it was getting toward the end of the career, because back then, we didn't really see DJing as a a viable method to make a living. Although it turned out that we were wrong about that.
Mhm.
But, I feel like we're on the tail end, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should just jump in and see what happens. I partook in a couple. I mean, they're fun and all. But, I think it was after either 90 or 91, I did one last battle in Newark with a couple of DJs, Jazzy Jim, Rick Lee. Who else was there? Dave Meyer. I mean, it was fun. Um, but after that, I kind of stopped and just focused in on college and getting into like the regular career, standard career that a lot of us did.
Mhm.
But when it comes to the battle scene, and if you have like a new trick or a new viewpoint of how to do things, especially for the younger guys, the younger cats out there, if it's fresh and new and it's not being shown out there, timing and winning battles is everything. Come on out and just show your stuff. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Just bring it out ASAP and show the world. Share your skill. Because sometimes if you wait too long, you know, it might not be in your best interest to wait.
Yeah.
If it's something fresh and new and you have it in your hand or in your lap, just bring it out.
Yeah.
And you'll be known as a pioneer for that.
Now we're gonna talk about, I guess, you getting back into DJing, because I believe you said was probably early '90s. You kind of got out of it because you went to college, or
Actually, in the 90s, I was still in it. I was doing
okay,
the wedding circuit.
okay,
It was really when I got married, I totally fell off back in
okay,
2003 and then
okay,
moved
okay.
away from the Bay. And I would say for a good 5, 6 years, it was just totally stopped.
Mhm.
And I didn't mind. I mean, it felt good. I didn't really miss it at all. So, I just let it be and would watch others and see what was kind of going on in the scene. Now, what brought me back was when my son was growing up, and he's in elementary school, and they would have all these functions that involve music, and I'd see these other parents playing music on what that their little tape players, or maybe not tape players, but their um, MP3 players over a speaker. And I was like, oh man, it's kind of lacking.
Yeah,
I think I could bring some flavor to these functions. And so, one year I volunteered and brought out some of my old equipment and just played, and they loved it. So I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and upgrade, because I have a feeling if I take over these things, they'll wanna see more of me, because I did notice that there was a definite void. Like, I wasn't seeing what we were used to seeing, like these high end, you know, audio and video productions. It was very low end. I was like, we could do better. We
yeah,
could definitely do better. So, I kind of dove full in and purchased all the uplighting, the DJ controllers, the new powered speakers, and would bust out at these functions, and people are like, "What the hell is this? Who the hell are you guys?" So in elementary school, I recall, there was the PTA that we never were really involved with. We would just bust out at these Halloween parades or night functions, and kind of my wife and I kind of took it over. And these PTA folks like, who the hell are you guys? Because we're like doing everything, and the principal was hella happy, but
yeah,
the PTA, they look like they're unhappy because you had these guys that were coming left field out of nowhere, just taking control of everything. And I don't know, it's kind of funny, but the kids and all the other parents enjoyed it.
yeah.
And, fast forward to junior high, my kid's first dance in 6th grade. Because over here at his school, junior high is 6th to 8th grade. You know, I wasn't used to that. We were only 7th and 8th. But they had these dances, and the principal said, "I heard you DJ. Can you do our dance?" I'm like, "Oh, hell yeah." So I came out there with all my uplighting surrounding like their multi-purpose room with like 20 uplights, and I came with gobo projectors projecting like patterns on the walls, and it came out with what was my speaker system, high end, you know. So that first night I was playing and mixing, I was basically bringing a Vegas vibe to junior high kids. And I remember the look on their face, because prior to that, you know, they had like other students that would run an iPod and they'd fight like, okay, we're gonna play it over the speaker. What song are we gonna play next? And I remember people saying, man, that was just horrible. So when we came in there with this Vegas vibe, all the kids were like, their jaws are just dropped. But they had fun. They got acclimated to what was going on around them and started dancing and having fun. But I remember after the dance, a principal comes up to me and she goes, "Man, in all my years of being principal here, I have never seen anything like this. You guys are awesome." So word started getting around, and we started doing like all these other junior high and elementary schools around
Yeah.
here, bringing the Vegas vibe to these young kids.
Yeah.
It was, oh man, it was funny, but it was fun at the same time. So you know, there was this. I actually have another friend, DJ ACL. He's in Walnut Creek, not too far from me, and we just noticed that void of good, talented DJs, and we're just filling it in our local areas.
Mhm. Wow. Super
So,
cool. So when you said you guys, who else was part of your, I guess, your crew or your group?
oh, I got DJ Pat
Oh,
Garcia and oh my gosh, Audi Gaspar.
okay.
They're like an old school DJ group, Sound Creations from Vallejo, that
Okay.
we had mentored back in the day. And yeah,
Okay.
actually, they're a group that won Imagine 10.
Okay.
They knew what it was like to feel the benefits of winning a big DJ battle like that back in the day.
Oh, wow.
So
And
yeah,
so,
years later, we kind of
okay.
recombined. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And so I guess today that kind of led to you doing events now, right? On
Yeah.
the side, at least. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like anything. I recall an interview. It's for the love, really.
Yeah.
I've seen similar with the Jabberwockies where they asked them, "Would you be doing this if it weren't for the fame?" He
Mhm.
said, "No, no. Whether we're getting paid or not, or whether we're famous or not, we'd still do it. It's just a passion."
Yeah.
So you know, I feel the same way. It's just a passion. You know, it's an activity that soothes my soul. If I'm having, you know, stress or issues with anything,
Yeah.
going to this activity kind of calms you down. You
Yeah.
know, mixing music or doing things that other people can appreciate.
Hmm. I mean, I'm sure it kind of brought back old memories for you of, you know, back then, like spinning for, yeah, like you said, spinning for people, and it just kind of called you back, pretty much, right?
Oh yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny. There's I'm sure I speak for a lot of DJs when you're in the zone and you're playing music and you see everyone getting into it. There's a point where you feel like you're not even spinning anymore. You feel
Yeah.
like someone else is spinning
Yeah.
and you're just caught up in the moment and you see everyone going wild. You're like, oh man, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
You just go at that vibe and, you know, I kind of feel good about bringing in an atmosphere and a fun memory for all these kids. Because, you know, in the future, they're going to look back and say, damn, that guy, whoever that was, he brought some good times. And,
Mhm.
you know, if you could have like a shared memory with a whole group of people, there's something special about that.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. All right. So original video rat. This will probably be our last question because we have to go on to our next guest. Okay. So how do you feel about the technology that is available to new DJs? Is it a positive or negative in your opinion?
I would say positive
Okay.
because for every generation, the technology changes.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it was a turntable. We didn't have the samplers to loop loop anything or play phrases over and over. So you had to do that manually.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think scratching probably was invented because you wanted to sample a sound or a word or a phrase. And then, you would repeat beats because you didn't have loopers back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually kind of seeing into the future where maybe with these kids who don't see like the old technology, they just go with what they have, kind of like what we did with the turntables. We might see a big transition in the DJ world, and maybe some people might not be ready for it, but I kind of see that coming. Especially as our generation gets older, and you have like these newer generations that are far removed from the old technology.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like anything, especially when it comes to technology. Sometimes it's hard, but it's just a natural thing that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, that's why I kind of mess with new technology like Ableton and just kind of clip things and play them and trigger them.
Mm-hmm.
Just to maybe hopefully inspire someone to do the same, or just think outside of the box.
Yeah.
Because in the end, if you're no matter what you're using, if you're still entertaining people and they're vibing to your music and dancing and enjoying, that's really where it's at.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, I still have love for like the old skills because that it takes a special
Mm-hmm.
steady hand and skill to do all those old things. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying with technology, we we might see a transition,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Well, I think we got to wrap it up, but love to bring you on because I know I've chatted with a lot of the different DJs around your time, and I'd love to get like a little roundtable going on because definitely there's a lot of other stories. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, give it up for DJ Newton. Give him a 1 in the chat. Thank you, thank you. Give it up for Mikooldeejay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I figured it would be great to kind of bring Newton on since you guys also have a little history. Obviously that's how you kind of came on to Jam. Oh, so I forgot to point out to everyone, Mikooldeejay was actually on our first Jam sessions, I believe. Correct?
I think it was the third.
So, was it the third?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, he was on the third one. But yeah, it's great to have you back. I know you're. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you liked it, man. I mean, hope you could hear it. Was the quality good? Was it okay?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, like what we did on the laptop would have been a lot better, but no, it's still great. We still could hear everything.
I apologize for that, man. We have terrible Wi-Fi, so
yeah,
that's my excuse. But
see,
real quick, I just want to give a shout out to my wife. I love
of course,
her. She's upstairs. She's probably sleeping. I don't know, but I love her for putting up with me. Shout out to my kids. I love you guys. Shout out to Newton, DJ Newton, man, my boy. We came up. So you're about to just say that. We did come up. We came up in Hercules together. We're all. I mean, I'm not the only middle-aged Filipino DJ trying to have some fun with this. So it makes me feel good knowing that he's still in the game, and he actually brought me back into the game. He didn't bring me back, but he caught me up to speed. I called him and I'm like, what is going on? What is all this? This is all new. I left. I left to become an adult. You and I had this conversation. I left to become an adult, join the Navy, doing all that other stuff, and I left during analog. It was analog. Everything was just needles, turntables, speakers, And when I came back, or when I, had this hair up my butt to just try and do this again, it was a completely different world, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. And so, watching Newton on Facebook and seeing what he's doing, and he was the perfect guy to call and pick his brain. And dude, I had to play a lot of catch up, man, a lot of catch up. You know, Newton and I grew up together. We experienced the same sort of uh, experiences as far as how things came about. You know, the birth, not the birth, but the infancy of hip hop, breakdancing was
Yeah,
going around,
that's
and
true.
you and I were talking about it. You know, Prince was popping, and Madonna was popping, and so there was all kinds of different things going on at one time in the '80s. And you know, I used to be a b-boy. Newton used to be a b-boy.
Yeah,
He
so
used to
here's
break.
the thing.
Yeah,
I recall a lot of DJs now, they're saying, I start out b-boying, then I transition to DJing. For us, we're doing it at the same time.
yeah, we were doing it at the same time, and it was totally random, totally spontaneous. Actually, my older brother, God bless him, he's up in Sacramento. He had the idea, and I think what sparked the idea was obviously the radio DJs at the time, KSOL, Cameron Paul, he was popping, and that inspired him. And he said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's go get a mixer." And I think that's pretty much the same idea went around with everybody else in the Bay to just do the same thing. And yeah, I started at 13, I think it was. I don't know how old Newton was. He was probably 12, but 12 or 13, 14. And
14,
it just
15. Yeah.
yeah, it was just fun, and it just it evolved into us getting good and being competitive with the other local guys in the neighborhood. Sonny Abad, shout out to you, boy. Roger Abad, rest in
Yeah.
peace. Bob, your brother Bob, shout out to Bob, man. I love him. And Ed,
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
my inspiration too, man. We always exchanged ideas. Like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And going back to what Newton was saying, yeah, back then there wasn't a battle style setup. It was more what you were comfortable with, and what you basically what we had set up was the same way Newton had set up. Where both our turntables were on the left hand,
Mm-hmm.
and few DJs do this today, and they're old school. If you see that,
Yeah.
that's old school, because if you have both turntables on one side, the whole battle juggling thing just wasn't quite there with us yet. It hasn't. I don't think it evolved really until things as they eventually do, like breakdancing. They just start to level up, and so the whole battle setup was the way to go. But Newton used to call us handicapped whenever we would present that or reveal that to people. It's like, yeah, I both my turntables are on the left or right side, and you'd be
Yeah, I
like,
was scarred by that one DJ at Davis. He's the
yeah,
first guy that mentioned that to us. Man, you guys are spinning handicap. I'm like, oh man, we gotta fix that.
yeah. So I've been doing my right hand, and it's progressing, but I'm no battle DJ, nor am I ever do I claim to be like a scratch DJ. But I like throwing some in there every now
Yeah.
and then.
So I guess back then you were kind of more of a mixed DJ as opposed to.
Yeah, because that was the
Yeah.
style. And
Yeah.
honestly, I was thinking about it the other day after we talked. I was like, you know what? I think my style is rooted in just mixing and finding that perfect mix, blending that beat. Um, the quick mixes, they came along. That was kind of like the whole, that was the next level, I think, when it came to battling. If you can quick mix, then, that's sort of a battle level. Then, scratching and stuff. But I learned from just making clean mixes, songs that blended well together.
Yeah.
And just kind of playing with music that way, and then scratching and the whole quick mixing came along, and you can incorporate that later. But yeah, those are my roots, and I always love a clean mix. You give me a clean mix any day.
Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to add, when we were younger, we were actually doing residency. We didn't know that was a term for Chuck E. Cheese in Pinole. Every Friday they had a teen night, and
Yeah,
we would have Mike and his group fill in for us when we had other gigs or proms or high school dances to do every Friday. And I didn't know, but I was looking at the history of that online not too long ago. That teen night in Chuck E. Cheese, that was the very first instance of it in Pinole. I had no clue, but I just recall the manager back then saying that he had this idea of bringing dancing to Chuck E. Cheese with pizza and games. And like, really? And he goes, yeah, I want you guys to be a part of it. So we took that over. And Mike and his crew would help us out with that as well. So
Yeah.
it was fun
Yeah. Thank
times.
you for that.
Lots of
Yeah.
pizza, lots of games.
So yeah, I totally forgot to bring that up on your interview, but because I know Mike Cool mentioned that. So how did the DJ find you guys?
Oh,
Sorry, the manager. How did he find you guys?
It was funny. We had 3 friends that were employees there.
Okay.
And they just overheard the manager one day saying, "Hey, I think we can make this like a really happening place if we make it a hangout and dance place for the teenagers." So essentially, it was, man, 17 and under that would go there every Friday, and it'd be
Yeah.
like a long line out to the parking lot where these guys are just waiting to get in and just dance and meet the
Yeah, and
girls.
I'm forever grateful, Newton, because you and Bob, that whenever you guys couldn't do it and you gave it to us, it got us into Chuck E. Cheese for free. We got to witness some of the best breakdancing battles back in that
Oh
day.
yeah,
And it was just
yeah.
fun.
Back
And,
then,
yeah.
yeah, word started getting around the bay that, hey man, they have some battles over here.
Yeah.
So we get like rival crews from Fairfield, San Francisco, going over there to take on whoever was there. But
I know.
it was funny when
Richmond,
you have
Vallejo.
like, yeah, the
Oh yeah.
local folks, they all teamed up like, we gotta take all these guys out, but there are some battles that were so close, and you're like, man, some of these guys coming from out of town are really good.
Yep. Shout out to Zero Gravity. Shout out to my crew, Crash Crew. Shout out to um, just all them folks out in Vallejo and Richmond, and everybody that came down. And what was great about that too is that as a teenager, think about this: we were teenagers, and we were blowing up that spot as a DJ. And then come Monday, all the kids that went on a Friday, they would approach me. I'm sure they approached me and was like, "Hey man, that was sick," or whatever. That was a fun time Friday night. That was great, and you were DJing, and they saw us DJing, and so you kind of got some sort of notoriety, some sort of recognition that way.
You're like
yeah,
you're like
Monday
local
morning.
celebs, basically.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest part about it was just being there right in the middle of it, because you had center stage. You got to see who was breakdancing. You got to see all the fine people, all the fine women or fine girls at the time. And, you got the, you were just kind of right there. You didn't have to pay to get in or anything. You were doing what you loved, which was spinning. And so it was fun. And the music back down. Everything was the Planet Rock beats and stuff. It was cool.
So I'm trying to figure out. So we we got this video from Newton. Is that basically where usually that stage right there? Is that where usually Chucky and his group is, like when they're playing the music?
That
Okay.
level,
Okay.
top level, that view you're looking down on, that was upper deck seating, or the second level seating.
Okay.
And so that would be the DJ booth, because you had the vantage point of looking down, and they would
Gotcha.
clear out all the other benches and tables. That would be the eating area. And
Yeah, surrounding the walls with all the animatronics, So this is like your main dining room.
Got it. Awesome. So going back, I think we kind of glossed over it. Is I know you said it's kind of like DJing and breakdancing, b-boying was like simultaneous for you. So I know I'm assuming, because I know you mentioned when you were spinning, it was kind of like just mainly you and your brother, and then but as far as the b-boy crew, breakdancing crew, there is a different group of people that you kind of danced with, basically, or who that consists of?
That I associated with. It was. I'll name them off. Neil Secretario, my boy, my best man. We've been friends forever. Oh, and happy birthday, Neil! If you're watching, or if anybody shows you this video, I wish you happy birthday, my brother. Grayson Maestre, I love you, bro. His little brother, Alvin Maestre. I mean, we were young, we were stupid. Who else was in our crew? Baby Legs, June. If June is watching, or still around. We also had the backup of Chris and Craig Gila, the world famous Chris and Craig Gila brothers.
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
guys would take out everybody.
That's a
And,
huge
you know,
crew then. That's a
Yeah.
huge crew. That's a huge crew then. Sounds like there's like 10 of you
it was
guys.
cool. It
Yeah.
was fun, man. It was fun.
Yeah.
But
then
I'm
so
sure-
so those guys, like, they only danced. They didn't get into DJing like you did.
No, not really.
No,
They
it
were
was just
straight
us.
dancers, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because which I hope we bring him on later on. But Rob Reyes, who a lot of people know, radio DJ, who obviously is pretty big. And he when I asked him, hey, so why didn't you dance, or why'd you DJ? And he's like, oh, because I couldn't dance. So I guess Mike, I guess you can do everything, huh? You can dance and DJ, huh?
I can't dance anymore, man. No, that's something I can't do anymore.
It was also
I can
easier back
stand there
then.
and play music.
Yeah, we're talking about the early infancy of breakdancing, where the playing field was a lot more level than it is now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it felt like
absolutely.
everyone, as long as they learned the basics, they had a chance to win battles. I mean, look at this 1984. I mean, that's very basic compared to now.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
yeah.
God, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing is, like, we kind of mentioned that is like you guys were just kind of learning from each other, right? You didn't have
Right.
YouTube, you didn't have anything. Now it's like, for me, because I used to b-boy, I used to dance, and that was I got into it probably like '97, and at that time we had VHSs that we were able to watch, like play it back over and over. For you guys, it was harder, and now it's like a lot of the cats now, they can just watch YouTube. You just, boom, you can go through a ton of YouTube videos. So it's like, it's really, so you're built, everyone's building on that foundation. So really, you guys were the pioneers.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, 'cause nowadays with internet and YouTube, everyone gets the same information at the same time.
yeah.
Before it wasn't like that. It would spread slowly from one region to the next, and you just had to wait for it and see it actually live in person. So yeah, it was interesting times.
Yeah. Very cool. So there's something going on with your mic. Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Are we
Maybe
good?
that. Hold on. Let me.
I don't know. They just said you muted me, so I don't know.
Yeah. No. It was. We're hearing like as if someone's typing.
Maybe I got my speakers up too high.
Maybe.
All right, try that.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. Awesome. Okay. So yeah. So I know you meant in our previous talk, you were talking about how you kind of got into the car culture as well.
Oh yeah, that's another sort of simultaneous hobby or thing that was going on. I was breakdancing. Well, it was kind of an evolution of sorts. It was DJing started it all, breakdancing, and then when I got old enough to drive, that's when I started getting into the lowriders and the cars and the beat. And pretty much anybody or everybody had some sort of car with beat in it, and what better to listen to your music than having a car with beat in it,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was deep in it. Car shows, I had a little lowrider mini truck with a hydraulic bed. I entered bed dance competitions at the lowrider shows. Attended a lot of them. So yeah, that's kind of deep into how I grew up too.
Yeah, very cool. And so I remember you saying too, you fixed up your car. And so how many cars did you have at that time?
Well, just the one mini truck. Yeah, lowered it myself and stuff. Of course, I had somebody put the hydraulics in it, but it was a thing to do, and it was fun. It kept me busy, kept me out of trouble. DJing, the breakdancing, the cars, they kept me out of trouble, I think.
Yeah. And so I guess going back, because I know we kind of glossed through it. How did you and Mutant link up?
As like right now or back then?
No. Yeah, back then.
Oh, back then, it was a small town of Hercules.
Yeah.
Our family moved us to Hercules. he lived on the Sunstream side. I lived on the Ladera side, but that didn't stop us from all the young people at the time, like us, to go find something to do, go find and meet some people, you know. And there was like no store, there was no stoplights. It was just one stop sign, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you had nothing better to do but get on your bike and just ride somewhere, you know, find something to do. And slowly but surely, they built a park out there in the middle, the Refugio Valley Park. If anybody who's familiar with Hercules, that's the park. That's where all the events happen. Anyways, they finally built that park, and it brought everybody there. You know, we had football games, we had parties and picnics, and you know, we were there for the first cultural fair. I don't know if they still do that, but you know, that's where everybody brought foods together. You know, it was mostly Filipino because mostly Filipino and Hercules. But you know, they brought all the different cultures there once a year to kind of offer up foods and look into what their culture was like. But you know, anyways, we met up right there at the park, and it was and of course school. You know,
School. Yeah.
as soon as you hit a junior high school, that's where we really started to meet up with, you know, figure out who's who and where they're from. But yeah, we met up at an early age, so it was cool.
Yeah. And I believe, yeah. So how did you get into DJing?
Myself?
Yeah.
Oh, my older brother, he sparked the idea, and I watched him do it, and he said, "This is what you do," and you know, and just that experience, that first time experience with putting two records on top, or two sounds, or two songs on top of each other, playing at the same time, was the thing. That's what sparked it all, and we're like, oh, you know, we're kind of crazy. We went crazy over it, and then you hear it on the radio. Cameron Paul, shout out to him. You know, he basically taught us that there's a style to it, there's a technique to it, there's a way of doing it to make it even sound even better. Not to just put two tracks over the top of each other. Anybody can do that, but you know, to put it on beat, to give it, you know, to give it more color, a better sound to it. When you put the two together, transition in and out of them, you know, that just it makes it that much more fun.
Awesome. And do you know how your brother kind of got into it?
he was just a catalyst, man. He liked to, whatever idea he had in his head, he wanted to go try it. So I'm thankful for that. So
Yeah, I know Bob and his older brother Dennis. They used to get together a lot and practice too. So, you know, everyone was just kind of learning at the same
hey,
time.
that's me.
That's you.
My truck did that. So
You had the
nice
Joe in the back, right?
I had my little brother and all his friends in the back, but I would take them to school and I would dump them off at the front gate of school.
Literally pull up the dump.
I do the local cruises. I cruise out to San Jose. San Jose is like my second hometown. You know, shout out to Santa Clara Street, Studio 47. Those who know what's up, they know what's up. You know, we cruise Santa Clara Street, El Camino. After every car show, we would cruise the city. You know, whatever city that car show was in, we have to be out there cruising, bumping. It was a good time, man. Good time. No violence.
Yeah. So so that interesting because you know, sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit because I was gonna ask about that. So at Chuck E. Cheese, there was never any like violence that broke out like during this battle.
There was never any beefs. Not that I know of. I don't know about Newton, but there was no beefs. There was gang banging wasn't even a thing then. I don't think.
Also, you got to remember that the culture of breakdancing removed any need for fighting.
Yeah,
fighting was breakdancing and battling. You know.
Yeah.
So when you lost, it really did feel like you got beat up or something. I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was like a boxing match or an MMA fight. You know, you go in, you start swinging, and then when it's done, you're like, "Damn, respect, dude." You know, and then you come out of their friends. It was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I remember in one of my notes that I think you mentioned. I'm trying to piece these together because I didn't have time to put it together, but you mentioned Divine Style and Skyway Sounds. Do you remember? Yeah.
I was just coming up with names from back in the day. Skyway. I remember watching Skyway at a showcase or a battle. I'm sure Newton probably knows a little more details about who they are, but Divine Style. Shout out to Chris Cristobal. Rest in peace, bro. You know, he was another local Hercules DJ, and we battled, and he beat me fair and square. He put it on me, and you know, I'm sure if he was still alive, as well as Roger Manowet, they'd probably still be in the game too. So yeah,
Yeah,
Divine Style. Shout out to them and their crew. They know who they are. Sonny Abad's crew, Third Dimensional Sounds. Roger's crew, when he had a crew, was Rhythm Rock Productions, and of course, you know, my boy Newton, Bob, and Ed, you know, with Dynamic Sounds. And like I said, they started it all with us.
Awesome. Shout out to Ed. I think he actually is in the chat. He hasn't.
Oh, shout out to my brother, my little brother Edgar too. Ed Lopez.
Yeah,
And if he's watching, you know, I love you, man. We taught him, and he surpassed me and my older brother with his skill. So, you know, shout out to him. I haven't heard him spin in a while, but you know, he'd be good to bring on and showcase as well. But we can talk about that later.
Cool. Awesome. Well, so let's go into. So I know there's a certain stint. I think similar to Newton, where you kind of got out of DJing and breakdancing, and then you got back into it recently. So yeah, tell me what happened when you fell out of it.
When you fell, well, I think I can speak for everybody who used to do it as a kid. You know, you get married, you have kids. You know, for me, it was joining the Navy. You know, you leave all that behind. I even had to leave my truck behind, and I had to leave everything behind. You start a whole different life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you live life for a while, and then when things slow down, and you start thinking back, it's like, oh, and what sparked it all? You know, we were doing like garage sale items on Let Go or what is that? The other apps for garage, Let Go and
Offer Up.
And so we sold some stuff, and I'm like just cruising through the pictures, and I see turntables and mixers. I'm like, whoa! And then it kind of just sparked it all back up. And then obviously I saw something for sale at a decent price, and turntables and a mixer. I'm like, oh, you know what? Screw it, I'll do it. Why not? What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And here I am today, dude. I don't know how much money I spent on stuff, but to get back into it was the worst that could happen. I'll tell you what happens. You spend money, and you spend money. Yeah, you spend money you're not supposed to spend. You know, that's why my wife gives me the evil eye, and that's why I love her, because you know she just puts up with my shit.
But it's not a cheap hobby, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think I find it interesting because we mentioned this in Newton's interview. Was back then obviously you didn't have disposable income, so you kind of came up with ways to make your own speakers or make your own lights and stuff like that. But now it's like we have the disposable income, so you're like, oh yeah, I'll buy that. I'll buy a new mixer. I'll buy a new table.
It's so easy. You order it and it shows up at your door.
Yeah.
Amazon is like Santa Claus and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't wait for UPS or FedEx to get here.
Yeah.
I'm blessed to, you know, to have a job. You know, my family's healthy and stuff, and I'm blessed to be able to afford these little things in here, and you know, try not to go crazy, of course. But it's fun, man, and I truly enjoy it. And you know, maybe, hey, here's an idea for you, JR. Maybe at some point at the end of the year or at midpoint of the year or something, have a little battle showcase. Have a battle and just kind of say who brings what. Yeah. And you know, it's just, I can't help it, man. When, you know, as a DJ, and I'm sure other guys will speak, can probably say the same, is that you have this competitive nature to yourself when you do this. You're like, you listen to other DJs, you're like, wow, that was cool, you know, or, you know, not to sound cocky or anything, but you think to yourself, oh, I can take this guy, you know, shit like that. Yeah. But you know, it's maybe not even a battle, just a showcase. Yeah. Maybe a vote from the viewers, like, you know, who do you want to see just kind of put something together and kind of and do something like that. Just an idea. Yeah, definitely. We'll consider that. You know, I think the brain trust, we need to discuss things. Oh yeah, shout out to DJ Eternal. If you're watching, bro, you don't know me, man, but I've been watching you on YouTube, and I like your shit, dude. And he's got some skills, man. And he's a local dude. He's from San Ho, and I've been watching him for a couple of years now. And when you guys brought him on, I was kind of, you know, I just had this like shock. You
Yeah.
know, like, he was, you know, to me, you know, he's a name.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, that was cool. And so when you guys bring on DJs that are next level, I'm like, cool, you know, makes me want to tune in and watch too.
Yeah. No, awesome. Yeah, we love to bring those bigger acts and stuff like that, but we also want to bring on like a lot of the old school cats, you know, who kind of
Bring
who
the
paved
new
the way.
guys, bring the new guys on, bring the new
Yeah.
school, you know, show
Yeah.
them what you got. DJ Maggie, shout out to you, baby girl.
Yeah.
You know, you got it going on.
Yeah.
I like her style. She's gonna be, she's like no other at this age, and her talent and her ear for music, amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So, shout out to you, baby girl.
Yeah. See, props to you, Maggie, DJ Maggie, if you're still in the chat.
Yeah,
What's
man.
up?
But you know, next week we're bringing out like some pretty good big name DJs, like Bite Size. She's exciting to watch. You gotta tune in and watch her, along
Yeah.
with DJ Pone and wow, we got some great DJ. A good lineup. It will be worth watching for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And all the new DJs are aspiring to do this. You know, just come with it, man. Come with something clean and presentable and enjoyable that we can all just groove to, man. That's the thing. That's all I care about, man. You can bring something good sounding, you're good.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
That's what's up.
Yeah, man. So thanks for like being a part of like our first one and seeing it grow, and you know, definitely tuning in, and you know, thanks for your set, and definitely would love to have you you know, do some other sets and stuff like that, like you know, for this show.
Yeah.
You know, and other stuff.
Well, the
so
first one was interesting. Let me just kind of mention this.
Yeah.
You know, when Newton came to me and said, "Hey, you know, you want to do a live stream with us?" I'm like, "Yeah." And actually, you know, let's take a step back from that one. He and I were talking about doing like a little old school theme, a Chuck E. Cheese throwback theme, and just go live on Facebook. And then he tells me, and I had already started working on a set. I'm like, cool, you know, I'm down. Let's do it. You know, I got the music. You know, it'll be fun. And then he said, no, let's do it with Caesar salad. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's what my set was fashioned after, the 80s hip hop, early hip hop. So I don't know, you know, I never really got a chance to talk to you about that first live stream, but that music was inspired from the 80s, and I kept it there for a good while. Yeah. And then this one here was more new music, into some old school and back to some new music, and I just kept it R&B and hip hop. But you know, themes are nice, man. I mean, shoot, it's challenging too. I've tried modern rock, and I think Newton has come up with something, but modern rock is hard. You know, I think everybody has done the freestyle and has kicked that thing into, you know, to death. That's such that freestyle. I love freestyle, man. Come on, but you know, you just hear that. You hear it all the time. You know?
Yeah, I think especially in the Bay Area, because I remember when I was living there in the 90s. I just remember always going to the Bay Area, and always it was freestyle all the time.
All day, every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Debbie Deb. Look out.
Yep.
And when I hear music, you know, Stevie B.
Yep.
Just yeah, it's just you want to break it up, man. Let's do something different. Let's hear something different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually, I totally forgot about that. I was going to ask you, you know, what inspired your sets. So thanks for giving some insight into that.
Yeah, well, you know, if you lay something down, or if you give me an idea, then I'll try to go with that. But otherwise, you know, I'm just sitting back and I'm just trying to be creative on my own. Yeah. Trying to come up with sets to, you know, play at a gig or whatnot. If there are any more gigs the rest of this year, or whenever this COVID thing goes away. Yeah. But yeah, I'm always trying to create something.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention or ask. So after you got back into DJing, did you start doing some mobile gigs recently?
I did.
You know, in the last couple of years.
Very few.
Okay.
And far between. I think I did 3 weddings.
Okay.
3 weddings in the last year or 2 years, and so it's not an aggressive pursuit of you know, having a mobile DJ business or anything like that. But I'm always open. You know, Newton and I are always talking. Yeah. I've got the lights for it. I've got the sound for it. You know, I've kind of built it back up to you know, to where it's respectable, to where I can gig in front of like 100 people.
Nice.
mic skills are something to still work on, but I haven't done enough, and it's been so long. But we used to do it back in the day, but things are different now, and so expectations are a lot higher. The quality of DJs, mobile DJs out there, they really they make you step up your game. I mean, it's competitive, and if one looks or performs better than you, then you need to do something to up your game. And with YouTube available and the way people advertise with social media, you see what the playing field is out there. And if you don't come close to that, then try again. Come back later.
Awesome. Yeah. So real quick, let's give a little shout to Mikooldeejay. You can follow him on Instagram at Mikooldeejay, and you can also follow.
There ain't nothing there, bro. It's just,
it's all good, man. You can still people can still follow you, man. And then you can also follow DJ Newton at DJ Newton at Instagram and his Mixcloud DJ Newton 510.
If you want to find me, man, just hit up JR. Michael John Lopez on Facebook. We're friends of friends. If you need me, you know where to find me, man. There ain't no social media.
And you can also tune in, look up at the top, Caesar Salad Productions on Instagram or Facebook.
That's it. That's what's up right there.
Yeah, awesome. Yep. So thank you guys. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Awesome. Yeah. So thank you guys. Thanks everyone. And thank you. And see you guys next stream. Peace.
Peace.